Hello, hello. Episode 1, choosing for today's show. And the lighting's gone weird. And we've also got a delivery right now showing up outside. So I've got a little bit of tea left to just finish before we get started. So let's just double check and see. Before we get started, just checking on my phone, see if it's letting me know. Are we live? Okay. So, okay, I'm just going to get started because it's 1 o'clock on the dot, and choosing for today, the Choosing for Today show, my first ever. And this is going to be a weekly thing, probably run for around half an hour, depending on the questions. So today's, hi Della, thanks for joining me live. Yeah, so today's question, today's show is all about if our choices create our lives, then what are we choosing? What are you choosing for today? If your choices create your life, if our choices in every moment create our lives, what are we choosing? And I'm saying that because I see choice as a superpower and not as, when we judge our choices and we're like, oh, I'm making the wrong choice or trying to make the right choice or, doing all of those things, then choice can get a bit, ugh. But when we recognize choice is a superpower that we have, it's a very empowering thing that we can do, and that every little choice can be an invitation, can be it can lead us somewhere fresh in our lives. Every moment we can make a fresh choice. So if we don't like the stuff that's showing up in any area of our lives, simply look at the choices you're making there, or just simply make a fresh choice. It's like, what choice could I make here to create something different? What choice could I make here to create something that's more fun for me? So I'm going to start by introducing myself. So I'm Nikki Duffy and my business is choosingfortoday.com. And the reason that I call my business Choosing for Today is because there was a stage when I realized I had a momentous trauma happen in my life, and I realized I had an aha moment, and I realized that choice was a superpower, and that even when I felt like my whole world as I knew it had collapsed in around me and I didn't know what was true anymore, I recognized that my choices could impact and create more of what I desired. So yeah, the impact. So excuse me being nervous, is my very first show, and I do have some notes of what I wanted to say written down just in case I got really so and feel free to put questions and comments in the comments. Feel free to interact. I will be reading them and checking them as we go. Yeah, so I'll go back and start with my story, and so this goes back to 1995. When it was just after my 30th birthday, and I had 2 young children, lovely husband. I had what you might call an enviable life, and I loved it. There were things that I wanted more of, and but generally, I knew I had a fabulous family. I had lots of things that I desired in my life, and I was sort of at the cusp of making fresh choices. My youngest son had just gone into full-time school, so it was opening up a space of possibilities for me. I had more time to myself and more possibilities with my life. And then was it 16 days after my 30th birthday, and excuse me if I go a bit emotional, my older sister Sophie, who had been married for 6 years, and her relationship had been very abusive. Her husband had been very abusive to her and their 16-month-old daughter. And so she, 16 days after my 30th birthday, Sophie chose to leave him. She decided she'd had enough, and she gathered up her daughter, slung what few things she could get hold of in a hurry at the bottom of the buggy, and left him and went to my parents' house. And excuse me, from my parents' house at 10:30 in the morning, she telephoned the solicitor that she'd been speaking to about her abusive marriage, because she'd been on off, should she, shouldn't she didn't want to, and all the things, should she leave him. And the solicitor had said, look, we'll get all the paperwork together, ready, if you ever do choose to prosecute him or do choose to leave him, and then all you need to do is one phone call, and then the solicitor would process the papers that were already signed. So at 10:30 that morning, my sister made that phone call from my parents' house. And my parents were out, so they had appointments elsewhere. And at 1:30 lunchtime, my mum left a phone message, an answer machine message. This is when everyone used landlines and nobody really had mobile phones back in 1995. So my mum left a message on my younger sister's landline saying, hello darling, we're home now, come round, because she was due to like pop round, have a cup of tea and visit them. So she left that message, and at 10 to 2, so 20 minutes later, there was an emergency phone call made by my sister Sophie from my parents' house. And it was just screaming. It was just screaming. And what had happened was Sophie's husband had come round to my parents' house with a knife, and he had murdered my mum, my dad, my sister Sophie, and his own baby, Amina. And that was the traumatic thing that happened to me. And in the preceding time after that, you know, the aftermath of like when we discovered it, and you know, by the time the police got there, it was too late. And so within the initial time of discovering that, and her husband was on the run, and you know, it was all over the news, and there was so much trauma, shock, anger, all those things you can imagine. And so many people were hurt and upset, because my family were a lovely family. My parents were a strong part of a big community, and so was my sister Sophie, and they were much loved by many people. And so in those initial times, so many people were coming up to me full of anger, full of hate, full of fury and bitterness and revenge and all of those things, like, oh, what can we do? Oh, all these things. And the negative, the hate, the fury, all of those things. And I remember at one point it was all going on around me, and suddenly it had like, there was like a clarity that came over me in the midst of all this chaos and all this anger and fury and bitterness and hate. And I had like flashes of people I'd come across, you know, old neighbors, or other things, like other people I'd known throughout my life who had had a tragedy happen in their life, and it had coloured their life and impacted in a negative and way, and they had become very bitter and angry and twisted, and everything was all in their lives, and all because of that one event. And I realized that I had a choice. I could, or that I had choice, even in a situation like that where my whole life was collapsing around me. I still had choice, and I could choose anger, and I could choose bitterness, and I could choose hate, or I could choose something different. And I recognized in that moment that the choice that I made would impact on my children. And sorry, Della's saying thank you so much. Oh, beautiful. Thank you, Della. Thank you. And I realized that the choices I made would impact on my children, on my community. So many people, you know, when my family were murdered, were looking to me. I was the oldest in the family then. They were saying, what should we do? You know, how should we be? How should we respond? And I had an awareness that if I responded with revenge and bitterness and hatred, then I would lose me, and that would impact just horribly on my family and my children and the people around. And so I made different choices, and I chose me. I chose to be in the love that my family had shown me, even though I'd lost them in such a horrible way. I chose me. I chose the me that I could be. I chose and I chose and I chose and I chose. And sometimes the things I chose in the ongoing moments, in the ongoing weeks and the ongoing years, sometimes the choices I made were not very generative. And I did choose bitterness, I did choose anger at times, and yet I knew it was somewhere in the deep recesses. I knew it was simply a choice, and I could choose again and change everything, and choose again and change everything, and choose again and change everything. So that is why I've called my business Choosing for Today, because it is about choosing in every moment. And even if our choices take us places that they're no fun for us, we have the power with one simple choice, maybe a brave choice, but choosing and choices are what can change things for us, and can change things massively and dynamically and ongoingly, and create more of what is fun for us and what we choose. And when we don't judge our choices, when we don't make ourselves wrong for the choices that perhaps haven't turned out so great, that's when we empower ourselves to choose more and to choose what will work for us. Because we don't know how it's going to show up until we choose it. And then it shows up and we think, is this fun? Yes, no. What can I choose here? What different can I choose here? What more can I choose here? So thank you so much for bearing with me through this. It's been a lot more emotional than I expected it to be. I went much more intense into it than I intended. And I've just seen the time on my clock. It's 13:13, and that's reminded me of some of the tools. You know, I went on a journey, as you can imagine, of finding tools and resources, seeking tools and resources to support me in my life and my choices, and to create more of the fun and the joy, and to find ways of processing the pain and the trauma and the post-traumatic stress and all of the things that are created in life and in events like that, and even in you don't have to have a monumentous event like that to need tools to create more in your life. I've had times when seemingly things that were seemingly small for other people, when they happened in my life, it was enormous, and I didn't know how to cope with it. So I went on a enormous journey for finding tools to make life work more fun and in ways that create more for not only me, but the people I serve, my clients, my family, my community, and the wider world. Because when we change ourselves, the people around us change. And when the people around us change, the people around them change. It's the whole ripple effect. And when the people around them change, the people around them change. And before you know it, the world is changing. And your choices for your life can help change the world, can create a world that's more fun for all of us to live in. So yes, back to 13, and 13 is one of the so I retrained as a therapist. Excuse me, my eyes are twitching now. So I retrained as a therapist. I've done all kinds of therapies, from clinical hypnotherapy to EFT, emotional freedom tapping, NLP, life coaching, business coaching, Reiki, you name it, I've done it. And extrasensory perception, all kinds of different things I've explored and qualified in. And about 4 or 5 years ago, I discovered Access Consciousness and the bars, and it was a huge gift to me in my life, and it just seemed to make things work faster and with more ease. So I retrained. I trained as a Access certified practitioner. So I now teach these things in various online classes and face-to-face workshops and classes. And one of the tools that I'd like to share with you is 13, and it's when things are just not showing up the way you want them to show up. 13 is a way to help you change tracks. Just change. And if you can change the energy, then that gives you space to create more of what you desire. Rather, because when we're in the energy of something that's not working, it can be very small and stuck, and it can feel very contracted and difficult to change. So 13 is a quick way to create more space and change tracks, and then choose what's going to work for you. So the way that this tool of 13 works is you gather up all the yucky energy, the stuck energy, the whatever it is, and you gather all of that up, and you count to 13. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 13, 13, 13, 13, 13, 13. And you just give it some, let the energy go on 13 until it feels like it's changed, and it feels like you've got more space and more space to choose. So, and yeah, so that's one of the many wonderful tools that I have. And the tools can seem really weird, so a lot of the stuff is really weird, and no matter how weird it is, it works. And there's so many tools that you can choose, whatever tool that works for you in the moment, and choice is one of the biggest tools to choose again. And even if you're just choosing to stand up when you've been sitting down, that can change the energy and create a different space. So that the purpose of choosing is to open up the possibilities, so you see more. Because so many times we're led to believe in this reality that we've grown up in, that you have two choices, yes or no, or you have no choice, or it can feel like you have no choice. And really, when you're presented with two choices, then really you have it does feel like you have no choice. So choices open up, because we have endless possibilities and endless choices. And even when our choice is simply to pick up this cup and take a sip, oh yeah, that's a choice. Okay, then you can make another choice, and then another choice, and another choice. That tea was a bit cold, I'm not going to choose to pick it up and sip it again, or maybe I will. So this and it opens up your possibilities, and it opens up your empowerment to see that you have the power to choose. Even when your choices start small, the more you're willing to make choices and recognize that it is a choice that you made, and you can make a fresh one without making yourself wrong. I could have picked that time. I was like, oh, that tea was cold. Oh, why did I sip that? That was a crappy choice. Oh, I'm so wrong for making that choice. That was a stupid thing to do. Let all of that go. Just let all of that go. You could even choose not to make yourself wrong. There's so much that we could do with choice, and there's so much we could talk about with choice. So I'm going to if you have any questions, then please put them in the comments. I would love to interact with you. Or if you have any questions that you would like me to address in next week's show, then that would be great as well. And some of the core areas that I love to facilitate people with their choices are money, business, and life and choices. So one of the things about life and choices is that our choices in every moment create our lives, and we take ourselves as we are with us wherever we go. We take ourselves and the choices we made, we take that into our financial situation, into our money situation. We take it into our work situation, into our business or our employment or whatever it is. We take it into our relationships. We take it into our food choices. It impacts on our physical body, the choices we make with food and our body, and the choice even to be kind to ourselves. What if you chose to be kind to you, just for now, just for today? Because that's another thing that we do with choices, is we think that, you know, we're led to believe that we have to make a choice. You know, I remember growing up, there was a saying that was, oh, you've made your bed, now you have to lie in it. As if, you know, you make one choice and then you have to stick to it for the rest of your life. That may not work for you. Maybe it will, but you know, you don't have to. Your choices are, there's a fluidity there, there's a growth, there's an expansion. Your choices, choice, it creates more for you, creates freedom, or if you choose it to. And we can also screw ourselves over with our choices and choose less, and choose to make money more important than us, choose to make other people's choices and opinions more valuable than our own. And they're simply interesting choices. And when you recognize that it has been a choice that you've made, you can then choose again and choose something different. Okay, thank you, Della. She's saying she has to got to go back to work. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you choosing to. And yeah, so what choices would you like to make that you didn't think that you could make, that if you allowed yourself to make them would actualize a completely different reality? So if our choices in every moment create our lives. What are you choosing for today? What would you like to choose for today? What would you be willing to choose for today? So yes, I'm going to end it here, and I'm doing if you would like to come and join me, I have a free group. What's it called? I wrote it down because I knew I'd forget it. It's called Choosing for Today Free. And it's a Facebook group. And at the moment, I'm doing a daily live, taking questions from the Getting Out of Debt Joyfully book by Simone Milasas. And we're taking, so every morning, 8:30 UK time, I'm coming on live in that group, Choosing for Today Free. So come and join us there. I'll put the link in the comments. And I would love to see you again here next week for next week's show. And if you have any topics you'd like me to cover, whether they are business, money, or any area of life, then I would love to hear from you. And if you are listening to this, because I'm doing this live on Facebook Live on my Facebook page, Choosing for Today. It's also going to go on a new podcast that I'm creating, which will also be Choosing for Today. And it'll be on YouTube and other places. So wherever it is you are discovering it, thank you. Thank you for choosing to watch it. And I would love to interact with you even more. I love your questions, and what choices could you make to create the life that is more fun for you? Even if your life is really, really fun, it's okay to have more fun. And if your life isn't so much fun, then it is okay to choose more fun in your life. Okay, so I'm going to go now. Thank you so much. See you next week, or tomorrow morning if you're coming to the Choosing for Today free group. Bye.